Here is currently my tank. The lights have just come on. It's just after 10 o'clock. And let's see what's going on behind the tank. Here's a glimpse of it behind the scenes. And if you look around the corner here, here is the 5-foot tall calc reactor. Goes all the way down to the ground. And at the base there, you can see that there's a paddle inside that is stirring the calc wasser, or the paste, or the powder. And you can see where the cloud is in reference to the entire thing. But let's go ahead and focus on the, what I like to call the command center. Now this guy is on the back side. It's the current version of it, but there is a cleat that goes on the back of it. You mount that to the wall and allows you to remove the command center from the wall if you need to. But let's talk about a little bit what's going on in the display. So right now I have a reading up here that says pH, and this is the actual reading of the pH inside the tank. I also have a target which I set, and I set the target at 8.30 because that's where I want it to be. Now based on these two numbers, it's going to change this rate right here, which is the effluent going from the calc reactor into the tank. So it's currently at 27 milliliters a minute, and like I said, what happens is it takes this calculation, or the difference between these two, and based on that it does some calculations, and it comes up with the effluent speed so that it can control, or get to, at this point, get to 8.3. Now I also set a threshold in the settings so that you don't run away with this number, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here. The RPM, that is basically that paddle that I showed you earlier. That's the speed in which it's running. It's running at 30.9 RPMs, or revolutions per minute. The other important number here is the pH inside the reactor itself, and currently it's at 12.42. So let's talk a little bit more about the settings. Now inside the settings I have right now the average evaporation, so you can come in here and you can set how much your tank evaporates in a 24-hour period, and then based on the number that you put in there, it sets, or it starts to count how much is dosed in the tank, so that it doesn't allow you to overdose the calc into the tank, so that you're overrunning your tank and raising or lowering your pH, or I'm sorry, your salinity in the tank. Also have the max milliliters that you want that pump to run at. So if you remember, it was at 27, and my max right now is at 28. So that makes it, or that prevents the pump from going above 28 milliliters a minute, so that you're not just dumping a bunch of calc wasser into your tank. Also have an end range. So the end range is, once I reach my target, that's what it's going to maintain as far as the milliliters a minute. So it's pushing, once it gets into that range, 3 mils a minute is all it's going to take to maintain it while the lights are on. And then that's something you just got to play with so that you get that right number, because it's easy to overshoot, and I'll talk about that here in a second too. What else is in here? Refill, I won't talk about that. Setting the clock is pretty obvious. We'll talk about the refill portion maybe another time. Calibration mode, so I'm able to calibrate 3 different things with this. There's a probe, like I said, inside the reactor, which is from Scientific, or Atlas Scientific, and it's just their whole entire circuit, and it talks to the Arduino very well, and it reads accurately the pH. So you can calibrate that. That's calibrated on your normal way in between 7 and the 10 range with the different solutions. And then the Cal observed pH. So what that does is, this thing is connected to the apex via the 0 to 10 volt output, and the 0 to 10 volt, I programmed the apex to give a range of what the pH is in that 0 to 10 volts based on the pH of the tank, and then this is able to convert that number into a readable number, and that's why you're seeing 8.25. We just bumped up a little bit. These lights are coming on, so now it's at 8.25, and I just looked up and I verified that with my Apex. The other calibration was calibration of the dose flow, and that's your dosing pump. It allows you to calibrate your pump, and this is a peristaltic pump, so that you know exactly how much you're putting into the tank. What else? Oh, the only thing I want to go into for the program section is this set run constant pH. The rest of this is place settings or savers. Well, it's going to allow you to change your pH based on time throughout the day, and say you want it to be higher, you know, at night and lower in the day, or vice versa. You're able to do that. That kind of goes into the more advanced side of things. But so far, what I've noticed is that if I set my target pH, it tries very hard to maintain it. The only other thing is maybe the portion of this schedule time is that you can kind of get ahead of when the lights go out. You know that your pH is going to start to drop pretty quickly, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. So you can kind of get ahead of the game by setting a particular time that you want the pH to be higher, and then it'll actually dose more to try and get to that point, and then it slows down based on whatever time you program into it, so that hopefully you can get a nice steady, what they call a sine wave, your nighttime low and your daytime high. But I'm kind of going too far into the weeds right now. But right now the target is 8.3. I can change that based on whatever I want. Let's say if I wanted a target to be 8.35, there are some people out there that like to run it in the 8.4 range or even higher. So you can see the target now is 8.35. This thing is only taking a reading from these two differences every 10 minutes. So based on where, when I changed it and where we are in that 10-minute range, it's not going to change that effluent until, you know, it starts to do that calculation. But I'm going to back up into here, and I'm going to change that back to 8.3. One popular, let's go back into that real quick so I can talk about it. One popular thing that a lot of people are suggesting is that you don't raise your pH up too quickly, and this is a great tool for that too. Is say so what they're saying is take your daily average from the day before and set that as your target pH for today, and then of course today's average is going to be slightly higher than yesterday's, so tomorrow you'll put today's average in, and slowly you're going to increase to your 8.3. So this is great. So every day you just come in here and you change it to yesterday's average. Let's say yesterday's average was 8.20, so I save it to that, and then today it is going to set that number as your target, and it's going to do what it can to get to that target. So then every day you just come in here and you just change that to what yesterday's average is. It's a pretty neat tool. It should help out quite a bit for folks that are, you know, just getting the calc reactor up online and trying to get their pH to the right, in the right range. But I'm going to leave it here for now. This is basically where I'm at. Again, this is all work in progress, so I wouldn't think that this is going to be the final display or the final way that the software works. But there's some bugs, and you might have caught one or two when I was changing the target pH. But so those are the things that I still need to work out. Anyway, I'll leave it here for now. Thank you.